You want to know the difference between a good man and a fool? A good man knows when to walk away. A fool stands in the flames and convinces himself it's just a warm summer night. I was that fool. So when I tell you I drove my 1978 Ford tow truck straight through the wedding reception tent, with a welded-together chassis sitting in the flatbed and a bottle of Jack Daniels wedged between my thighs, you gotta understand one thing first. I didn't crash that wedding because I was bitter. I crashed it because I was settling a debt. A debt nobody else even knew existed. A debt I'd been paying for 8 goddamn years while the man who owed it got to play the hero. That man wasn't my brother Tommy. It was his father. Old Jack McCall. My mentor. My second father. The man who taught me everything I know about turning a wrench and looking a man in the eye when you shake his hand. And the man who destroyed my life with one sloppy, careless, 5-second mistake that I took the blame for. Now let me back up. Because nobody climbs into a tow truck with the intention of turning a 6-tier wedding cake into a roadside memorial unless there's a damn good reason. And mine started 8 years ago, back when I still believed in loyalty like it was gospel. Back then, McCall Racing wasn't just a garage. It was a goddamn cathedral. And old Jack? He was the high priest. Every Sunday, after church let out, half the county would migrate over to Jack's place on Route 19. The smokers would fire up. The coolers would crack open. And old Jack would pop the hood on whatever beast he was taming that week while the men stood around nodding like they understood a quarter of what they were looking at. We built dirt track stock cars. Late models, mostly. The kind that roar like pissed-off grizzlies and fishtail through red clay corners at 90 miles an hour while the crowd screams and spills beer down their shirts. I was 17 when my own daddy walked out. Told my mama he was going for a pack of Marlboros and just kept driving until he hit the Florida state line. Never saw him again. Never wanted to. 2 weeks after he left, I walked into McCall Racing and asked for a job sweeping floors. Old Jack looked me up and down. I was scrawny. Hungry. Wearing boots with holes in both toes. You know anything about engines? He asked. No, sir. You know how to shut up and listen? Yes, sir. He nodded. Start Monday. Don't be late. That was the beginning. Within a year, I wasn't sweeping floors anymore. I was rebuilding carburetors. Setting valve lash. Learning how to read spark plugs like tea leaves. Old Jack would stand over my shoulder, arms crossed, and every now and then he'd grunt. Not bad, kid. That grunt meant more to me than any trophy ever would. Tommy was Jack's actual son. Blood and bone. But Tommy? Tommy liked the glory without the grease. He wanted to drive the cars, not build them. He wanted his picture in the local paper, wanted the pretty girls in the pit lane, wanted everyone to slap his back and call him a stud. And I didn't mind. Tommy was my brother in every way that mattered. We grew up side by side in that garage. He was the flash. I was the grind. He was the smile. I was the sweat. We balanced out. Then there was Emily. Emily Dawson. Homecoming queen. County fair pageant winner 3 years running. Hair the color of sweet tea and eyes that could make a man forget his own name. She was mine first. I say that not to claim ownership of a human being, but to establish the facts. I met her at a dirt track race in Huntsville. Her daddy owned a tire shop. She was standing by the concession stand, holding a corn dog, and I walked up to her covered in grease from head to toe. I said, "You gonna eat that?" She said, "You gonna shower?" I said, "Maybe." She said, "Then maybe you can have my number." 6 months later, I had a ring in my pocket. A small diamond. Nothing fancy. I'd been saving for 8 months, picking up extra shifts at the auto parts store on weekends. I was going to propose at the season championship race. Do it right there in Victory Lane after I tuned Tommy's car to the checkered flag. That was the plan, anyway. The championship race was in October. The biggest event McCall Racing had ever entered. Scouts from NASCAR's lower-tier series were supposedly in the stands. Sponsors were sniffing around. This was our shot. Old Jack's shot. Tommy's shot. My shot. We'd spent 6 months building that car. A number 47 Chevy that I'd personally blueprint every component on. The engine was a 358 cubic inch small block that I'd assembled with my own 2 hands, measuring every clearance 3 times, torquing every bolt to spec. Old Jack signed off on the final safety inspection. That was the rule. Jack did the final sign-off. Always. He was the legend. His signature on the tech sheet meant the car was race-ready, safe, and legal. Race day came. The stands were packed. The air smelled like racing fuel and grilled onions. Emily was in the pit lane wearing a McCall Racing shirt, and she kissed me on the cheek before I strapped Tommy into the car. "Be careful," she said. "I'm not the one driving," I said. "I know. That's what worries me." I laughed. Tommy gave me a thumbs up from inside the cockpit. I remember the sound of that engine firing up. Music. Pure, violent, beautiful music. The race started. Tommy was fast. Really fast. He qualified third and worked his way up to second by lap 40. By lap 75, he was leading. I was standing on top of the hauler, watching, my heart pounding. This was it. Everything we'd worked for. Then on lap 93, coming out of turn 3, the car snapped sideways. No warning. No smoke. No sputter. Just a violent, vicious yank to the right, like an invisible giant had grabbed the rear bumper and slung it. The car hit the outside wall nose first at 110 miles an hour. The sound was, God, I can still hear it. Metal screaming. Glass exploding. The crowd going from roar to gasp in half a heartbeat. The car flipped twice. Landed on its roof. Slid down the banking in a shower of sparks and dirt. I was off the hauler and running before I even knew my legs were moving. The safety crew got there first. They pulled Tommy out. He was alive. Broken arm. Concussion. Cracked ribs. But alive. I stood there, breathing hard, staring at the wreckage of the car I'd built. And I knew. Standing right there, before the fire trucks even arrived, I knew something was wrong. Not wrong like racing luck wrong. Wrong like I missed something wrong. Old Jack was beside me. His face was gray. His hands were shaking. "I did the inspection," he whispered. I signed off. "I know, Jack. No. You don't understand." He grabbed my arm. His grip was iron. I signed off. But I didn't actually check everything. I was distracted. The sponsors were there. Tommy was talking my ear off. Jack. Slow down. What are you saying? He looked at me. And I saw it in his eyes. The terror. The guilt. The dawning horror of what he'd done. "The steering rack," he said. "I was supposed to check the mounting bolts. Double-check them. There's a cotter pin on the lower bolt. It's easy to miss. I think I missed it. I can't remember. I can't remember if I checked it or just marked it off." My blood went cold. "If that cotter pin wasn't seated," I said slowly, "the bolt could have backed out under vibration. Steering would have gone dead." Jack closed his eyes. The track officials were already gathering. The sanctioning body would investigate. Somebody was going to be held responsible. Somebody was going to lose their competition license. Somebody might face criminal charges if negligence was found. Tommy was in an ambulance. The car was a twisted pile of scrap. And Jack was about to lose everything. His reputation. His business. His livelihood. Maybe his freedom. He'd built McCall Racing from nothing. 40 years of sweat and sacrifice. If they pinned this on him, it was all gone. The garage. The house. His retirement. His legacy. I looked at that old man. That man who'd taken in a fatherless kid and taught him how to be somebody. That man who'd never missed a Sunday dinner. Who'd co-signed my first truck loan. Who'd treated me like his own flesh and blood. I made a choice. Jack, I said. Listen to me. You didn't miss anything. You understand? You didn't miss a damn thing. What are you? I did the final assembly on that steering rack. I installed those bolts. The cotter pin was my responsibility. He stared at me. No, he said. No, boy. I'm not letting you. You're not letting me do anything. My voice was steady. I don't know how. I'm telling you what happened. I screwed up. I was in a hurry. I missed the cotter pin. End of story. It'll destroy you. Better me than you. That was it. The words hung in the air between us like a swung hammer frozen mid-arc. Better me than you, I repeated. Tommy needs his father. The garage needs Jack McCall. Nobody needs me. Emily. Emily will be fine. She'll find somebody else. Somebody who isn't about to get blacklisted from every track in the South. Jack's eyes were wet. I'd never seen him cry. Not once. Not when his wife died. Not when he busted his hand in a press. Never. Son, he said. His voice cracked. Don't call me that right now, I said. If you call me that, I might change my mind. The officials arrived. They asked questions. I answered. Yes, I assembled the steering rack. Yes, I was responsible for the final bolt check. Yes, I must have missed the cotter pin. No, Jack McCall had nothing to do with it. He signed off on my work. He trusted me. I let him down. It took about 3 hours for the news to spread through the pits. By sunset, I was a pariah. The sanctioning body revoked my competition license. Lifetime ban. The track banned me. McCall Racing issued a statement distancing themselves from my negligent actions. I wrote that statement myself. Sat down at Jack's kitchen table and typed it out while his lawyer watched. The police investigated. Tommy's injuries triggered a criminal negligence inquiry. I cooperated fully. Told them exactly what I'd supposedly done wrong. The district attorney offered a deal. 18 months in county jail, reduced to 12 for good behavior. Felony record. Permanent. I took it. The day I turned myself in, Emily came to see me. She was standing outside the courthouse, her arms wrapped around herself like she was holding her own pieces together. Why? She asked. Why would you do this? You're not careless. You don't make mistakes like that. I guess I did this time. Bullshit. Her eyes were hard. I know you, Sam. I know you. You're covering for someone. Emily. It's Jack, isn't it? Or Tommy. One of them screwed up, and you're falling on the sword like some kind of martyr. I didn't answer. You're choosing them over me, she said. Over us. I'm not choosing anyone over you. You are. You're choosing their future over ours. And I can't wait for you, Sam. I can't put my life on hold while you rot in a cell for something you didn't do. I know. I'll move on. I know. She slapped me. Hard. Right across the face. Then she kissed me. Harder. Then she walked away. I stood there on the courthouse steps, cheeks stinging, lips still tingling, and watched the only woman I ever loved disappear into the parking lot. 6 hours later, I was in a county jail cell, wearing an orange jumpsuit, staring at a ceiling stained with God knows what. That was day one of my new life. County jail is not prison. It's worse in some ways. No programs. No yard time. Just a concrete box full of men waiting for something to happen. Their trial. Their transfer. Their next fix. I was in a pod with 20 other guys. Bunks stacked 3 high. Toilet in the corner with no privacy. The air smelled like sweat, bleach, and regret. My first week, I kept my head down. Didn't talk to anyone. Didn't make eye contact. Just did my time, meal to meal, hour to hour. But trouble finds you whether you're looking or not. His name was Dwayne Colson. 6'4". 280 pounds. Covered in prison tattoos that looked like they'd been drawn by a shaky-handed toddler. He ran the pod. Everyone knew it. The guards knew it. Even the cockroaches probably paid him tribute. He cornered me in the shower on day 8. "I hear you're a mechanic," he said. His voice was gravel wrapped in phlegm. "I used to be. I got a cousin on the outside. Got a Chevelle. 1970, won't start. Thinks it's the timing. You gonna tell me how to fix it?" It wasn't a question. I looked at him. Water dripping down my face. Naked. Vulnerable. But I'd already lost everything. What else was there to be afraid of? "Your cousin's an idiot," I said. "If it's a 1970 Chevelle with a stock 396, the timing chain probably hasn't been replaced since Nixon was in office. Tell him to pull the distributor cap and check for slack. If there's more than 10 degrees of play, the chain's stretched. He can set the timing all day long and it'll never hold." Dwayne stared at me. Then he laughed. A big, booming, belly-shaking laugh that echoed off the shower tiles. "God damn," he said. "You really do know your shit." That was it. That was the moment I became useful. Word spread. The mechanic in Pod C. The guy who could fix anything. Guards started pulling me aside to ask about their personal vehicles. Inmates offered me commissary in exchange for diagnostic advice. I didn't have a shop. I didn't have tools. But I had 40 years of old Jack's knowledge crammed into my skull, and nobody could take that away. By month 3, I was teaching a class in the day room on Saturday afternoons. Engine Basics 101. Half the pod would gather around while I drew diagrams on scrap paper. Intake. Compression. Power. Exhaust. The 4-stroke cycle. The gospel according to internal combustion. "You really love this stuff," one of the younger inmates said once. A kid named Marcus. 19 years old. In for stealing a car. Ironic. "I don't love it," I said. "It's just the only thing I'm good at." "Nah." Marcus shook his head. "You talk about engines the way my grandma talks about Jesus." I didn't have an answer for that. The months ground on. I got letters from my mama. She was heartbroken. Confused. She knew me well enough to know something didn't add up, but she didn't push. She just wrote about her garden. Her church group. The stray cat she'd adopted. She never mentioned Tommy or Jack. I didn't ask. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to hear about how Tommy was recovering. How the McCall name had bounced back. How the garage was busier than ever. How old Jack was still the king of Route 19. And I definitely didn't want to hear about Emily. But prison walls don't stop gossip. An old racer from our circuit got picked up on a DUI and landed in my pod. He told me everything. Tommy was racing again. Tommy and Emily were dating. Tommy was being hailed as the comeback kid, the local hero who'd overcome a devastating crash. The crash that the negligent mechanic had caused. I listened to all of it without a word. Then I went back to my bunk, lay down, and stared at that stained ceiling for a very long time. They got married on a Saturday in June. The old racer told me that too. Big wedding. White tent out at the country club. Half the town showed up. Jack gave a toast. Emily looked beautiful. Tommy looked like $1,000,000. I was in a cell, eating a bologna sandwich, when I got the news. 12 months later, I walked out of county jail with $47 in my pocket, a bus ticket to nowhere, and a piece of paper that said I was a convicted felon. The sky outside was too bright. The air was too fresh. I stood on the sidewalk for about 10 minutes, just blinking, trying to remember how to be a person again. Nobody came to pick me up. No surprise there. I got on a Greyhound headed south. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't go back to Marshall County. Couldn't drive past that garage. Couldn't risk seeing Emily at the grocery store with a wedding ring on her finger. So I rode. 300 miles later, I ended up in a town called Mercy, Alabama. Population 900. 1 traffic light. 1 gas station. 1 diner. And a broken-down garage with a faded sign that read, Jenkins Automotive, we fix what your husband tried to fix. I walked in. The place was a disaster. Tools scattered everywhere. A truck on the lift with its transmission half removed. An old man with a cane and a permanent scowl sitting behind the counter. You hiring? I asked. He looked me up and down. You just get out? Does it matter? Depends. You a thief? No. You a liar? I paused. Not about things that matter. He grunted. You know engines? I know engines better than I know people. Another grunt. Longer pause. $20 a day, cash. You start now. That transmission ain't gonna drop itself. His name was Roy Jenkins. He was 73 years old. His left leg was half metal from a Vietnam landmine. His right hand was missing 2 fingers from a garage accident. He was the meanest, crustiest, most foul-mouthed human being I'd ever met. I loved him immediately. He didn't ask about my past. Didn't ask why a guy with my skills was begging for work at a rundown shop in a town nobody had ever heard of. He just handed me a wrench and pointed at the truck. I stayed there for 2 years. I rebuilt Roy's business from the ground up. Word got around. Mercy, Alabama became the place you went when the dealership couldn't fix your car. When the computer diagnostics couldn't find the problem. When you needed someone who understood machines the old-fashioned way. I charged fair prices. Did honest work. Never cut corners. Never lied about what needed fixing and what could wait. And slowly, piece by piece, I built myself back. I bought a trailer. A tiny thing on a 1/4 acre of land. I adopted a dog from the shelter. A mangy pit bull mix named Socket. Because he was a socket. And I was a wrench. And we fit. I didn't date. Didn't socialize. Didn't go to church, which made me an object of suspicion among the local ladies, who tried for 2 years straight to set me up with their divorced daughters. No thank you, ma'am, I'd say. I'm married to my work. What a shame, they'd say. A handsome man like you. I wasn't handsome. I was functional. There's a difference. Roy passed away in my 3rd year. Heart attack in his sleep. I found him in his chair the next morning, a half-eaten bologna sandwich on the table beside him. His cane was still leaning against the armrest. He left me the garage. No family. No kids. Just a handwritten will that said, "Give it all to the ex-con." He's the only one who ever gave a damn. I buried him in the Mercy Cemetery, under an oak tree. Bought him a headstone. The inscription read, "Roy Jenkins, he fixed what your husband tried to fix." 6 people came to the funeral. I was one of them. After that, the garage was mine. Jenkins Automotive became Mercy Motors. I painted the sign myself. Bought new equipment. Hired a couple local kids and taught them the trade. Life was quiet. Life was simple. Life was good enough. Then the letter came. I recognized the handwriting before I even opened it. Tommy's chicken scratch. An invitation. You are cordially invited to the vow renewal ceremony of Thomas and Emily McCall. Vow renewal. 10 years. They'd been married 10 years, and Tommy wanted to throw a party to celebrate. A big one. At the old garage. Which wasn't a garage anymore. He'd expanded it into a full-blown racing headquarters. McCall Performance Group. 30 employees. A showroom. A dyno cell. Sponsorships with national brands. The letter included a personal note from Tommy. Sam. It's been too long. Please come. Dad's not doing great. He asks about you all the time. I know things ended badly, but you're still my brother. We all want you there. No hard feelings. Let's put the past behind us. No hard feelings. Let's put the past behind us. I read those words about 50 times. Then I folded the letter, put it in my toolbox, and didn't think about it for a week. But Socket knew something was up. That dog would sit at my feet while I worked, staring up at me with those knowing eyes. What? I said. You think I should go? He wagged his tail. You're a dog. What do you know? Tail wag. Fine. I'll think about it. I thought about it. And the more I thought, the more I realized something. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. The anger had burned off years ago. What was left was something colder. Something sharper. Unfinished business. I'd taken the fall. I'd done the time. I'd rebuilt my life from scratch while Tommy drove my girl to the altar in the car I'd nearly died building. And now he wanted me to come celebrate. Fine. I'd celebrate. But not the way he expected. That's how I ended up in my tow truck on a Saturday afternoon, parked at the edge of the McCall Racing compound, looking at the big white tent and the string lights and the 200 guests in their Sunday best. I'd built something special for the occasion. A sculpture. Welded together from old car parts. A twisted, beautiful, monstrous thing. It looked like a heart made of iron and rust and broken piston rods. I had a card too. Congratulations on 10 years. You're welcome for the first one. Sam. And I had that bottle of Jack Daniels. The engine rumbled beneath me. Socket was in the passenger seat. He was wearing a bow tie I'd made from an old fan belt. Ready, boy? Tail wag. I put the truck in gear. The tent was one of those fancy white canopies they rent out for garden parties and country club fundraisers. String lights hung in lazy arcs overhead. Tables draped in ivory linen. Centerpieces made of baby's breath and mason jars. A 3-man bluegrass band was picking through Rocky Top near the buffet table. 200 heads turned when my tow truck rumbled past the valet stand. I didn't stop at the designated parking area. I drove right up onto the grass, the diesel engine growling low, Socket riding shotgun with his fanbelt bow tie and his tongue hanging out like he was at a parade. The bluegrass band faltered. The song died. Conversations dropped one by one, like candles being snuffed. I recognized faces. Old racers from the dirt track days. Mechanics who'd worked for Jack back when the garage still smelled like gear oil and ambition. Local business owners. Town council members. People who'd watched me fall and never once reached out a hand. Fair enough. I wouldn't have taken it anyway. I killed the engine and stepped out. The sculpture I'd brought sat on the flatbed under a canvas tarp. I'd spent 3 weeks building it. Late nights after the shop closed. Every weld was a memory. Every bent piston rod was a word I'd never said out loud. What the hell is that? The voice came from a thick-necked security guy striding toward me. Rent a cup. Khaki pants. Earpiece. The whole costume. I ignored him and opened the passenger door. Socket jumped down, sniffed the grass, and immediately lifted his leg on a flower arrangement. Good dog. Sir. I'm talking to you. You can't park here. This is a private event. I reached into the truck, pulled out my bottle of Jack Daniels, and took a slow sip. I'm family, I said. Family doesn't drive through the flower beds. Some families do. I walked past him toward the tent. Socket trotted alongside. That's when I saw Tommy. He was standing near the head table, a champagne flute frozen halfway to his lips. 10 years had been good to him. His jaw had filled out. His hair was still thick, graying just at the temples. He wore a tailored suit that probably cost more than my whole truck. But his eyes were the same. Wide. Trying to calculate the angle. Trying to figure out if I was a problem or an opportunity. Sam. He set down the glass and started toward me. Holy hell. Sam. You actually came. In the flesh. He grabbed me in a hug. Hard. Tight. The kind of hug you give someone you owe money to. I can't believe it, he said into my shoulder. I can't believe you're here. It's been 10 years. Too long. Way too long. He pulled back, holding me at arm's length. You look good. You look rough, but good. Like you've been fighting bears. Just transmissions. He laughed. Too loud. Too quick. The laugh of a man who'd rehearsed this moment in his head and was sticking to the script. The crowd around us was still murmuring, trying to process the scene. The guy in the tow truck. The ex-con mechanic. The man who'd nearly killed the groom and now stood at his anniversary party drinking whiskey from the bottle. Listen, Tommy said, lowering his voice. I know things are complicated. I know there's a lot of history. But tonight's about celebrating. 10 years. Can you believe it? Me and Emily. 10 years. I heard. And I wanted you here. I really did. You're my brother, Sam. That never changed. I took another sip of whiskey. Where's your dad? Tommy's smile flickered. He's around. He's not doing great, Sam. Had a stroke last year. Can't talk much. Uses a tablet to write things down. He's in a wheelchair now. The whiskey went sour in my throat. He asks about you, Tommy continued. All the time. Types your name out on that damn tablet every time I visit. Where's Sam? How's Sam? Bring Sam, like a broken record. I didn't answer. Come on, Tommy said, clapping my shoulder. Let's get you a real drink. And maybe a tie. I have a tie. I pointed at Socket. The dog wagged his tail. Tommy stared at the dog. Then at me. Then he laughed again, but this time there was something nervous underneath it. Jesus, Sam. You haven't changed at all. You'd be surprised. I left Socket with a plate of barbecue from the buffet and made my way through the crowd. People parted around me like I was carrying a live grenade. Some nodded. Some whispered. Some just stared. I recognized Betty Callahan, the town librarian, who'd once hired me to fix her Buick. She gave me a small, sad smile and mouthed the words, "Good to see you." I recognized Dale Rutledge, who used to race against Tommy back in the day. He raised his beer toward me in a silent toast. I nodded back. And then I saw Emily. She was standing under a dogwood tree at the edge of the tent, talking to two women I didn't recognize. She was still beautiful. Maybe more than before. 10 years had sharpened her. The soft edges of the girl I'd loved had been replaced by the polished poise of a woman who'd learned to perform happiness as a full-time job. Her dress was pale blue. Her hair was pinned up. A string of pearls at her throat. Our eyes met. She excused herself from her conversation and walked toward me. Her steps were measured. Careful. Like she was approaching a wounded animal that might bolt or bite. "Hello, Sam." "Emily." She didn't hug me. Didn't offer her hand. Just stood there, 3 feet away, her champagne glass held in front of her like a shield. "You came. That's what people keep saying. I didn't think you would." "Neither did I." She looked at my clothes. My grease-stained jeans. My faded work shirt with "Mercy Motors" stitched on the pocket. My boots, which had seen better decades. "You look exactly the same," she said. I showered. "That's not what I meant." "I know what you meant." A long pause. The bluegrass band started up again, something slow and mournful about lost love and liquor. Appropriate. "How have you been?" she asked. "Alive. Tommy told me you have a shop." "Down in, where was it?" "Mercy." "Right. Mercy." She tried to smile. "Funny name for a town. Funny thing to ask for when you don't deserve it." The smile faltered. "Sam. Don't. Whatever you're about to say, don't. I didn't come here for apologies or explanations or whatever speech you've been rehearsing in the mirror for 10 years. Then why did you come?" I looked past her, toward the main building. The old garage. It had been gutted and renovated into something I barely recognized. Glass walls. Polished concrete floors. A showroom with vintage cars on display like museum pieces. "I came to see Jack." "He's..." "I know. Tommy told me." "He can't talk, Sam." The stroke took most of his speech. "He can write, but it's slow. And he gets tired." "Then I won't stay long." I started walking toward the building. Emily grabbed my arm. "Wait." I stopped. "He misses you," she said. "More than you know. Every single day, he types your name. 'Sam, where's Sam?' Over and over. Sometimes it's the only thing he writes all day." I pulled my arm free. "He knows where to find me." Inside, the garage was air-conditioned and spotless. The oil stains had been scrubbed away. The old hydraulic lift where I'd spent thousands of hours was gone, replaced by a gleaming new one. The walls were covered in framed photos and magazine covers. McCall Racing's greatest hits. Tommy's face was in most of them. Mine wasn't in any. I found Jack in a small office at the back. It was the only room that still felt like the old garage. The desk was a battered steel thing from the 1960s. The shelves were cluttered with carburetor parts and timing lights and dusty racing trophies. The smell of grease and tobacco lingered in the air like a ghost. He was in a wheelchair, facing the window, looking out at the tent and the party and the life he'd built. I stood in the doorway for a long moment. He'd gotten so small. The stroke had hollowed him out. His left arm hung limp. The left side of his face drooped slightly. But his right eye was still sharp. Still fierce. Still the eye of the man who'd taught me to read a spark plug and stand up straight and never let another man fight your battles. I walked around the wheelchair and knelt in front of him. "Hey, old man." His eye focused on me. His mouth twitched. A sound came out. Something between a grunt and a sob. He reached for the tablet on his lap. His right hand shook, but he managed to tap the screen. Letters appeared. SAM. "Yeah," I said. "It's me." His hand moved again. SORRY. I stared at the word. I'd imagined this moment 1,000 times. In my cell. In Roy's garage. Late at night in my trailer, Socket snoring at my feet. I'd imagined what I'd say. What I'd scream. What I'd demand. But looking at that one word on that glowing screen, all my rehearsed fury drained away. "Don't," I said. HADTOTELL. "No, you didn't." His eye welled up. His hand trembled harder, but he kept typing. YOUWERERIGHT. What? BETTERYOUTHANME. I laughed. I couldn't help it. A short, bitter bark of a laugh. "That's what I said, wasn't it? Better me than you." He nodded. A jerky, painful motion. "Stupidest thing I ever said." He shook his head. SAVEDME. "You lost everything anyway," I said. "Your health. Your voice. Maybe not the business, but..." SAVEDTOMMY. I went quiet. SAVEDTHENAME. The name, I repeated. McCall Racing. That's what mattered. Not me. The name on the sign. Tears were running down his face now. The working side. The other side was frozen, a mask of stone over a river of grief. I reached out and took his hand. The right one. The one that still worked. The one that had held a wrench for 60 years and signed a safety inspection that ended my life. "Listen to me," I said. "I need you to hear this. I mean really hear it." He looked at me. "I never blamed you. Not once. Not for a single second." His hand squeezed mine. "I blamed the situation. I blamed the timing. I blamed 1,000 other things. But I never blamed you. You gave me everything, Jack. A trade. A purpose. A reason to get up in the morning when my own father decided I wasn't worth sticking around for. You think a cotter pin changes any of that?" He tried to type, but his hand was shaking too hard now. "It doesn't," I said. "It never did." I stood up. His hand clung to mine, but I gently pulled free. "Now I'm going to go back out there and eat some of that overpriced barbecue. And then I'm going to give Tommy my wedding gift. And then I'm going to leave. HISNAME. I looked at the screen. What? WHATHISNAME. I realized he was pointing at the doorway. At Socket, who had wandered in and was sniffing a stack of old racing tires. His name's Socket. Jack stared at the dog. The dog stared back. Then Socket wagged his tail, and Jack made a sound I'd never heard before. Laughter. Rasping, broken, beautiful laughter. I left him there in his office, the old man and the pit bull, both of them beat-up survivors who'd been thrown away by people who didn't see their value. Back outside, the party had found its rhythm again. The initial shock of my arrival had faded into a low hum of gossip. People were eating and drinking and pretending they hadn't just watched a ghost walk through the buffet line. Tommy found me near the bar. "You saw him?" "I saw him. He's been waiting for this. For you to come back. For years." "I know." Tommy shifted his weight. He was working up to something. I could see it in the way he kept adjusting his collar. "Sam, there's something I need to tell you. Something about what happened. About the accident." I turned to face him fully. "What about it?" "I know," he said. His voice was barely above a whisper. "I've known for a long time. That it wasn't you. That it was Dad." The world didn't stop spinning. The music didn't screech to a halt. But something inside me went very, very still. "How long?" "About 5 years. I found some old notes in his desk. A letter he'd written but never sent. Confessing everything. Apologizing to you. To the sanctioning board. He was going to turn himself in, but then his health went bad and you didn't say anything." Tommy's face twisted. What was I supposed to say? "Hey everyone, my dad caused that crash, not Sam. My bad. It would have destroyed everything. The business. The sponsorships. Our whole lives. Your lives. That's not fair." "Fair." I let the word hang there. "You want to talk about fair? I'm not the one who asked you to take the fall. No. You just benefited from it. Every single day for 10 years. You took the racing career. You took the business. You took Emily. Emily wasn't yours to take. You pushed her away." I set down my drink. "That's true," I said. "I did push her away. I made my choices. But you? You never once said, 'Hey, maybe my brother shouldn't rot in jail for something he didn't do.' You never once said, 'Let me help him get back on his feet.' You let me disappear, Tommy. You let me vanish into a county jail cell and a trailer in a town nobody's heard of, and you didn't lift a goddamn finger. I didn't know how." "Bullshit." The word landed like a slap. "You didn't want to know. There's a difference." Tommy's jaw tightened. For a second, I saw something flash in his eyes. The real Tommy. The one who'd always resented me a little. The one who knew, deep down, that he'd never been as good with a wrench, never been as close to his father, never been quite enough on his own. "You think you're better than me," he said. "I don't think about you at all." That was a lie, but it was a good one. "I tried to make it right," Tommy said. "I sent you the invitation. I wanted you here. I wanted to." "To what? Clear your conscience? Get my blessing? Have me smile and tell you everything's forgiven so you can sleep better at night?" "Yes." He said it without flinching. "All of that. Is that so wrong?" I looked at him. My brother. My betrayer. The man who had everything I'd lost. "It's not wrong," I said. "It's just not my job anymore." I walked away before he could answer. The bluegrass band had switched to something upbeat. People were dancing under the string lights. The barbecue was running low. The cake was being wheeled out. 3 tiers of white frosting and edible pearls. I found Socket under a table, working on a rib bone he'd sweet-talked off someone. "Come on, boy. Time to give them their present." I walked to the tow truck. The crowd noticed. Of course they noticed. I'd been the most interesting thing at this party since I rolled up, and now I was climbing onto the flatbed and pulling the tarp off my creation. Gasps. Murmurs. A few nervous laughs. The sculpture was beautiful. I'm not being arrogant. It was genuinely beautiful. I'd welded together a heart. Not a perfect Valentine's Day heart. A real one. Asymmetrical. Veined with old brake lines. Chambered with piston rings. The whole thing was mounted on a base made from a cracked engine block. It stood about 4 feet tall and probably weighed 300 pounds. I'd painted it rust red and oil black. And across the front, I'd welded words made from bent connecting rods. For Tommy and Emily. 10 years. You're welcome for the first one. I climbed off the flatbed and gestured at the sculpture like a game show host revealing a prize. Happy anniversary, I said. Loud enough for everyone to hear. The crowd didn't know how to react. Some people clapped. Some people looked at Tommy. Some people pulled out their phones to take pictures. Tommy stood frozen near the bar, his face a complicated mess of emotions. Emily had appeared beside him. She was looking at the sculpture. Then at me. Then at the words I'd welded into the iron. You're welcome for the first one. She understood. I could see it in her eyes. She'd always understood. I climbed back into my truck. Socket jumped into the passenger seat. Wait. It was Emily. She was walking toward me. Fast. Her champagne glass was gone. Her careful composure was gone too. Sam, wait. I rolled down the window. What? Stay. Just, stay. For a little while. Please. Why? Because, she stopped. Swallowed. Because I haven't stopped thinking about you for 10 years. Because every time I look at Tommy, I see what we could have had. Because I chose the easy thing, the safe thing, and I've been paying for it ever since. Emily. I know. I know it's too late. I know you don't owe me anything. But just, stay. Have a drink. Let me pretend for one night that I didn't destroy the best thing that ever happened to me. I looked at her. The sweet tea hair was threaded with gray now. The eyes that could make a man forget his own name were wet and red. You didn't destroy it, I said. I did. I made a choice. You made a choice. We all made choices. Bad ones. Maybe. But they're done. I reached out and touched her face. Just for a second. Just to remember what it felt like. Take care of Jack, I said. He's not going to be around much longer. Then I put the truck in gear and drove away from the tent, the lights, the music, and the life I'd almost had. Socket put his head on my lap. I scratched his ears. Good boy, I said. Good boy. Behind us, the bluegrass band started playing, I'll Fly Away. I didn't look back. I didn't make it to the county line before my phone buzzed. Not a call. A text. From a number I didn't recognize. Turn around. It's Jack. He's gone. I pulled the truck onto the shoulder. Gravel popped under the tires. Socket lifted his head, sensing the shift in the air. Gone. The word sat in my chest like a swallowed stone. I sat there for a full minute, engine idling, staring at the screen. Then I put the truck in reverse, swung a wide U-turn across the empty 2-lane blacktop, and headed back toward the lights. By the time I pulled into the McCall Racing compound, the party had collapsed. The band had stopped playing. The string lights still twinkled like nothing had happened, but the crowd had clustered into small, hushed groups. Women were crying. Men were standing with their hands in their pockets, looking at the ground. The ambulance was already there. No siren. No rush. That's how you know it's too late. I pushed through the crowd. Someone tried to stop me. I don't remember who. I just kept walking. Tommy was standing near the office door, his face blank with shock. Emily was beside him, her hand on his arm. She saw me first. Sam. He asked for you. Right before. He was typing your name. Over and over. I walked past them into the office. Jack was still in his wheelchair. His head was tilted back slightly. His eyes were closed. The tablet was in his lap, the screen still glowing. The paramedics had already checked him. One of them, a young woman with tired eyes, looked at me. You family? Yeah, I said. I'm family. I'm sorry. Massive stroke. Nothing anyone could have done. I nodded. She said something else. Procedures. Funeral homes. Paperwork. I didn't hear any of it. I knelt down in front of the wheelchair. Same position I'd been in an hour earlier. Same man. Same office. But everything was different now. The tablet was still on. I picked it up. The screen showed what he'd been typing when it happened. The letters were jumbled. His hand must have been shaking badly. But I could make out the words. SAM. TELL. THEM. And then, below that, half finished. ITWASM. That was it. He'd gotten 4 letters into me before his hand stopped. It was me. 40 years of silence. 8 years of letting me carry his weight. And in his last moment, he tried to set the record straight. I set the tablet down gently. Then I did something I hadn't done in 8 years. I cried. Not the dignified, single tear down the cheek kind of crying. The ugly kind. The kind where your shoulders shake and your throat closes up and you make sounds that don't sound human. Socket pushed his way into the office and laid his head on my knee. Outside, the crowd was still murmuring. The ambulance left. The coroner's van arrived. The party had officially become awake. I don't know how long I stayed there on the floor. Minutes. Maybe longer. Eventually, I heard footsteps behind me. Tommy. Sam. We need to figure out arrangements. The funeral. The business. There's a lot to. I stood up. Turned around. Read this. I held out the tablet. He took it. Read the screen. His face went pale. It was me, he whispered. He was trying to say it. After all these years, he was trying to. He was trying to tell the truth. Tommy looked from the tablet to me to his father's body and back again. What do we do? It was the most honest question he'd ever asked me. We tell them, I said. Tell them what? That Dad caused the crash? That you went to prison for nothing? That our whole goddamn legacy is built on a lie? His voice was rising. Sam, that'll destroy everything. The sponsors. The business. Tommy. He stopped. Your father just died. Right there. In that chair. And the last thing he tried to do on this earth was tell the truth about what happened. Are you really going to piss on that because you're worried about sponsors? He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. What about you, he said. You're the one who suffered. You're the one who lost everything. If we tell the truth, you get vindicated. You get your name back. You. This isn't about me. Bullshit. Everything's been about you for 8 years. Every time Dad looked at me, he was wishing I was you. Every time I won a race, I knew you could have built a faster car. Every time Emily, he stopped. Every time Emily what? Nothing. No. Say it. He looked at me. His eyes were red. Every time Emily looks at me, I know she's thinking about you. She has been for 10 years. Our whole marriage is a consolation prize, and we both know it." The words hung there. I should have felt something. Triumph. Vindication. Satisfaction. But all I felt was tired. "Tommy. I'm not going to tell anyone what happened. Not tonight. Not ever. That's not why I came back." "Then why?" "To see him. One last time." I looked at Jack's face. Peaceful now. All the guilt and the grief and the struggling finally over. And I did. Tommy stared at me. "You're not going to, you're just going to keep carrying it? After everything? I've carried it this long. Another 40 years won't make a difference. But it's not yours to carry." "No," I said. "It's not. But that's what family does, Tommy. We carry things for each other. Even when the other person doesn't deserve it. Even when they never say thank you. Even when they let you rot." I walked past him, out of the office. The crowd was still there. They'd been joined by more people. Word spreads fast in a small town. The coroner's van was loading Jack's body. Emily was standing near the front of the tent, her arms crossed, her face wet. I walked to the tow truck. The Iron Heart was still on the flatbed, glinting under the string lights. I climbed up onto the flatbed and stood next to it. "Can I have everyone's attention?" 200 faces turned toward me. The man who'd crashed the party. The ex-con mechanic. The ghost. I know most of you remember me. Some of you probably wish you didn't. A few nervous laughs. For those who don't, my name is Sam. I used to work here. I built race cars for Jack McCall. And 8 years ago, I made a mistake that nearly killed Tommy and ended my career. Murmurs. I went to prison for it. I lost everything. My job. My reputation. I glanced at Emily. My future. And I deserved it. That's what I told everyone. That's what I've been telling myself for 8 years. I paused. That's a lie. The murmurs grew louder. The mistake wasn't mine. It was Jack's. Gasps. Someone dropped a glass. Jack missed a cotter pin on a safety inspection. It was a tiny thing. A 5-second oversight. But it caused the crash. And when I found out, I made a choice. I told the officials it was my fault. I took the blame. I went to prison. Not because I was noble. Not because I was a hero. But because Jack McCall was the closest thing to a father I ever had, and I couldn't watch him lose everything. I looked at the crowd. At the shocked faces. At Tommy, standing frozen in the office doorway. At Emily, whose hand was pressed against her mouth. Jack never asked me to do it. He tried to stop me. But I did it anyway. And I'd do it again. I put my hand on the Iron Heart. I'm telling you this now because Jack can't. He tried. His last words, my voice cracked. I steadied it. His last words were an attempt to tell the truth. He didn't quite finish. So I'm finishing it for him. I looked down at the sculpture. This is a gift. For Tommy and Emily. 10 years of marriage. And for the rest of you, it's a reminder. That some debts can't be paid. Some sacrifices can't be unmade. And some people are worth ruining your life for. I climbed down from the flatbed. No one spoke. I walked to my truck. Socket was already in the passenger seat, his head out the window. Sam. I turned. Tommy had followed me. His face was wet. His hands were shaking. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so goddamn sorry. For everything. For not saying anything. For letting you carry this alone. For. Stop. But. I don't need your apology. I stopped needing it years ago. Then what do you need? I thought about it. Take care of your mother. She just lost her husband. Run the business. Don't screw it up. And tell your kids about Jack someday. Tell them he was a great man who made one mistake and spent the rest of his life trying to make up for it. I don't have kids. Then have some. Jack would have wanted grandkids. I climbed into the truck. Sam. It was Emily. She'd walked over while we were talking. Will we see you again? At the funeral? After? I don't know. Please come. For him. He would have wanted you there. I looked at her. Then at Tommy. Then back at the office window, where Jack's wheelchair still sat in the dark. I'll think about it. I drove away. For the second time that night. For the last time. The funeral was 3 days later. I went. Sat in the back. Didn't talk to anyone. Socket wore his fanbelt bow tie. The minister talked about Jack's legacy. His contributions to the racing community. His love for his family. He didn't mention the crash. Didn't mention me. That was fine. Tommy got up to give the eulogy. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. He unfolded a piece of paper, looked at the crowd, and then set the paper down. My father was a great man, he said. But he wasn't perfect. He made a mistake. A big one. And someone else paid for it. He looked directly at me. My brother Sam paid for it. The crowd stirred. I've known the truth for 5 years. I didn't say anything. I was too afraid of what it would cost me. My business. My reputation. My marriage. So I let Sam carry the weight alone. And I've hated myself for it every single day. He was crying now. Openly. In front of everyone. Sam came to my anniversary party 3 days ago. He brought a gift. A sculpture. It's still sitting out there by the garage. It's a heart made of broken car parts. And it says, "You're welcome for the first one." Because he knows. He's always known. And he never asked for anything in return. Tommy took a breath. So I'm giving him something. Right here. Right now. The truth. The whole truth. My father caused the crash. Sam took the blame. Sam went to prison for a crime he didn't commit. And his voice broke. I let him. He stepped down from the pulpit. The crowd didn't know what to do. Some people were crying. Some people were whispering. Some people were staring at me. I sat in the back row, my hand on Socket's head, and didn't move. After the service, Tommy found me at the gravesite. I meant what I said. I know. I'm going to make it right. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to. You don't have to. I do. For Dad. For you. For myself. I looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time in 10 years, I saw my brother. Not the guy who'd taken everything from me. Just the scared, insecure kid who'd always been afraid he wasn't enough. You're enough, Tommy. He blinked. What? You heard me. You were always enough. You just never believed it. He broke down. Right there in the cemetery, in his black funeral suit, with dirt still fresh on his father's grave. I put my arm around him and let him cry. That night, I went back to Mercy. The garage was exactly how I'd left it. The tools on the pegboard. The oil stains on the floor. The order forms tacked to the corkboard. Roy's old cane still leaning in the corner. Socket curled up on his bed in the office. I poured myself a glass of whiskey and sat down at the workbench. I thought about Jack. About the last thing he'd typed. It was me. 4 letters. 4 letters that took him 40 years to write. I thought about Tommy. About his confession at the funeral. About the look on his face when I told him he was enough. I thought about Emily. About her standing under the dogwood tree, her champagne glass a shield, asking me to stay. I'd wanted to. For 1 second. Maybe less. But the past is a heavy thing. Heavier than any engine block. Heavier than any iron heart. And I thought about myself. The 17-year-old kid who'd walked into McCall racing with holes in his boots. The 25-year-old man who'd stood in front of race officials and lied. The 30-something ex-con who'd rebuilt a life from nothing in a town called Mercy. I raised my glass. To Jack. You stubborn, guilt-ridden, magnificent old bastard. Wherever you are, I hope the engines are loud and the inspections are clean. I drank. Socket wagged his tail. And somewhere in the distance, maybe just in my memory, I heard the roar of a dirt track stock car, screaming around a red clay corner, heading for the checkered flag. 6 months later, I got a package in the mail. It was from Tommy. Inside was a framed photo. An old one. From the season championship race. The one that never finished. The photo showed me and Jack standing next to the number 47 car. He had his arm around my shoulder. We were both grinning at the camera, covered in grease and hope. There was a note tucked into the frame. Sam. I found this in Dad's desk. He kept it there all these years. On the back, he wrote, "My 2 sons. I thought you should have it. Tommy." I turned the photo over. Written in Jack's shaky handwriting, faded but still legible. My 2 sons. Sam and Tommy. The best things I ever built. I hung the photo in my office. Right above Socket's bed. Right where I could see it every morning when I walked in. And every now and then, when the shop was quiet and the day was done, I'd look up at that photo and smile. Because here's the thing about carrying someone else's weight. It's heavy. It's unfair. It'll break your back and crush your spirit and make you question every choice you ever made. But sometimes, just sometimes, it's also the only thing that keeps you standing. My name is Sam. I'm a mechanic. I went to prison for a crime I didn't commit. I lost my girl, my reputation, and 8 years of my life. And I'd do it all again. Not because I'm a hero. Not because I'm noble. Because once upon a time, an old man with grease under his fingernails looked at a fatherless kid and said, "Start Monday. Don't be late." That was enough. That'll always be enough. Socket put his head on my knee and sighed. "Good boy," I said. And that's the end of that.